I'm Mark Featherstone-Whitty. I'm the head of and the founder of the Liverpool Institute for Performing Arts, which is a higher education institution, so you have to be 18 to come and study here. The important thing about any kind of learning is finding out what people you admire needed in order to be where they are now. What happened to me was I saw a film called Fame, which is the early 80s, and I thought I'm going to start a secondary school. And that secondary school did start. It was the Brit School in London, you may have heard of it. There was a second one called Birmingham Ormiston Academy in Birmingham. And we're actually just about to start one for 16-year-olds in Liverpool. And it was really quite simple because I asked the people who I admired, and the great thing about this country is that if you write to people and are patient enough, they will see you. And I basically did one question, and I didn't realise how important this question was. The question was, from where you are now, what would you have liked to have known that you had to learn the hard way? And that effectively was how we developed the curriculum. One of the people I admire is George Martin, who is, for those who don't know, was the Beatles record producer. And he said it's very important that people learn how to interact with people across different disciplines. He was talking about music, of course, but it's very important that the sound engineer, for instance, knows what it's like being a musician and vice versa. I simply took that statement from George and it's turned into one of the striking features of this institution, in that we put all the disciplines together to produce a show, and they all have to understand how to work with other people with very different intelligences and outlooks from themselves. And this has one enormous advantage when you leave this unique institution, because what I say to people is, you will find everyone you ever need. So the bands who leave here, the small theatre companies leave here, etc., etc., etc. Everything is there. So you have a band, of course musicians come from here, but they also have the electro engineer will come from here, a tour manager could come from here. I mean, everyone. And that is one of the, I think I can honestly say, no one's copied us yet. I think that's the unique benefit of an institution like this. So just think of a show, think of a metaphor of a show. You've got lighting, you've got sound, you've got set build, set design, front of house, marketing, of course all the performers, and we do all that in-house. The one thing which doesn't form part of that metaphor, but is really important, and that is community drama, which is the other thing that we do, which is great in its own right because that's encouraging other people to be creative themselves. We have always seen the performing arts as an opportunity to be somewhere else, but still where you are. For me, it is the cheapest form of holiday. In other words, you're in a room. It would be true if you're reading a book, to be honest, or watching a television series. But if you're in a room where a live show is taking place and it's believable, you're not there anymore. You are on the, not on the stage, but you're in the world of the stage. And that is such a trip. It's just changing realities. And it's an enormous pleasure. It's always been an enormous pleasure. And it's enormously important because the interesting thing about performing arts, and this is true for any kind of learning, we could choose I suppose you could choose engineering or something like that, but if you choose performing arts, the great thing about performing arts is something needs to be achieved. So you are putting on something. In order to achieve that, you will need to learn this. That will provide the motivation for doing things, and that is a much more preferable motivation than people saying, oh, well, you've got to learn this, you've got to learn that. So we are great believers in something called project-based learning. In other words, you have got to do something. A bit like, you know, here are 4 oil drums some planks and some rope, and now you've got to get across the river. Just doing something like that, you will learn so much. In our case, it's not that. We're not going across rivers, but we are putting on shows. There are a whole lot of skills that you learn in the process you don't realise you're learning. I mean, all these transferable skills, like being competent in front of people, being able to engage people, and all those. I mean, there are lots of them. You need to go to an institution which is absolutely based on the reality of what work is likely to be like. Not a fantasy, but a reality. The school or the institution has got to show a track record of people who've left and gone on to do the sort of things that you might want to go on to do yourself. Plenty of other things, but those two things would be a good start. It's quite mad, really. Really quite mad. Really good example here. I can tell you a very quick story, and the very quick story is this: that before we came here, this was a boys' school, an academic boys' school. So people were learning, classics. They were learning sciences. They were learning humanities, and right down here there was a little bit of performing arts. Actually, it wasn't just performing arts. There was woodwork going on. There was music going on. There was an art teacher here. But these were very much not regarded as serious or important subjects. Pretty much what the government kind of wanted to do with GCSEs. Now, the music teacher here, at one time, had half the Beatles in the school and missed it. That's quite an oversight, isn't it? And that was because they weren't interested in people actually doing something. The last thing you would do in that music lesson would be to create music. All you'd be doing would be listening to other people's music. And why the performing arts are important is that it is, first of all, enormously enjoyable, but it is learning by doing. And I would say that is one of the most, and then you reflect on it and you plan to do it better the next time, and you come up with different strategies. But it is doing, and doing is very attractive. We put collaboration at the heart of what we do, and we're small enough to do that. And despite the possibility now you can recruit as many students as you like, up until relatively recently there was a kind of cap on the number of students we could bring into an institution, we will always remain this size. I would say the top 3 tips are, first of all, you have got to want to do it. You've got to have a passion for what you want to do. That's the top tip. The second tip is you have got to work incredibly hard, harder than you probably ever imagined how to work, because everybody else is working hard at it. You've got to work hard at it. The third thing is you need to have an element of good fortune. But I would argue that you can make good fortune work for you. So those 3 things would be essentials.